As investigators piece together what happened in connection with the death of Nolan Wells, you have his friends raising legal defense money, Nolan's mom reportedly being investigated for professional misconduct, the signs of potential litigation mounting. What exactly is going on right now? Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. So there are some things happening with the Nolan Wells case that we should talk about. This is the death of the 18-year-old college football player, went missing after a July 4th boating trip at the barrier island off of Horn Island in Mississippi, reportedly didn't go back on the boat with his friends, goes missing, and his body is found 2 days later washed ashore. The family is demanding a thorough investigation. They are demanding answers. They have hired attorney Ben Crump to navigate this situation for them. They ordered an independent autopsy of Nolan's body, but the cause and manner of death were undetermined. From that examination, we do know, based on reporting, the official state medical examination has reportedly been completed, presumably with the toxicology report, but we don't know the results yet. It's part of a larger case file that will, by all accounts, be sent to a grand jury for potential filing of criminal charges. The results won't be released till then, and we have no timeline on when this grand jury process will happen. Now, before I go any further, if you want more details about the Nolan Wells case, if you want to actually look at all the documents that we have so far in this, see them for yourselves, you can go on the Long Crime Plus app. We have a case file section. It says Nolan Wells. We have all that information up there. And by the way, this is for a lot of different stories that we follow. It's all in the case files on the Long Crime Plus app. We're opening up the evidence vault so you can inspect the raw body cam footage, the 911 calls, the crime scene photos, the full trial tapes firsthand, because sometimes we're limited in how much we can show here. Plus, also when you go on the Long Crime Plus app, you get ad-free streaming of all your favorite long crime and court TV shows, so you can see the full picture for an entire month free. Head on over to longcrimeplus.com, enter the promo code SIDEBAR, and you're going to start exploring all of that today. Hope you can check it out. Okay, back to Nolan Wells. Is the family being shut out? Are they being silenced? Are they being intimidated? What are their legal rights for information? What are their legal rights against others? What are their legal rights to speak out, give their take on the evidence, the investigation? What about those who are claiming they are being victimized? And it is getting heated. It's been reported that right now 3 people have been criminally charged with making threats in connection with this case. And these suspects don't seem to know the family personally or to be involved in any way. But these alleged threats against a judge whose son was with Nolan that day, a witness, local officials, this is getting serious. This is taking on a life of its own. And now you're also seeing the prospect of litigation. You're seeing a legal defense fund being raised, which we're going to talk about. You're seeing Nolan's mom reportedly being hit with a professional complaint. There is a lot to talk about, especially when it comes to Ben Crump's role, Nolan's purported friends. The question becomes, is there a line? What is the line? Has anyone crossed the line? A lot of moving parts about this, so I want to talk about it. Okay, so this is where I bring in Rich Schoenstein, okay, litigator who knows the ins and outs of things like this. Rich, thank you so much for coming on. It's good to see you. There's a lot I want to talk to you about, but I got to start with this because this is like the latest breaking news, big news that came out. According to outlets such as WLBT, the Mississippi Board of Nursing has apparently launched this professional misconduct investigation against Nolan's mom, Christine Wells Wonsley. And apparently there was an anonymous complaint. Well, Ben Crump, who I've mentioned represents the Wells family, said that this was, quote, a warning shot to essentially intimidate Christine Wonsley and keep her quiet about looking into what happened with her son. Highlights that she has never had a complaint before. He said, quote, attacking a grieving mother's career does not answer the question of what happened to Nolan. It tells us the question matters and the answer is scaring somebody. We will keep asking questions and demanding the facts until Christine knows how her son died. I should note that Christine posted on Facebook that the Mississippi Board of Nursing has now closed this professional misconduct case, saying, quote, thank you to all of those who have constantly kept us in your prayers. This definitely has added more hurt to an already devastating time because I love my job and I love my patients. Now, Rich, reason I wanted to bring you on is there's a lot of civil components to this. There's a lot of ways.
A Jackson County deputy told the press no foul play was suspected. That was July 6th. By July 21st, Nancy Grace had convened a 1-hour special. A grand jury was reportedly empaneled, and the Department of Justice was fielding calls. That is a shift in momentum that does not happen by accident. It happens when someone with a national platform decides a case is not going to disappear. Before we go deeper into what the documents actually show, make sure you're subscribed to Project Cold Case. Because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence. The initial official narrative was straightforward: a tragic 4th of July drowning. Nolan Wells, 18 years old, rowed out to Horn Island on a boat called the Triton. The boat had bilge pump trouble. His friends say they left without him because he wanted to stay behind and talk to a girl named Katie. He was found dead 2 days later. The sheriff said no crime was committed. Case closed. Except it was never closed. And the reason it is not closed is because the evidence does not align with a simple drowning.
Doesn't mean that they have to know you. And then there was this. So it was reported, and we talked about this, that according to preliminary information from a document from the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, witnesses reportedly told investigators that Nolan had been drinking heavily with friends that day before he went missing. This was reported by ABC News. Well, Christine, his mom, goes on the Don Lemon show and denies this, says, if you were in our situation, how would you feel if there were millions of people who were saying, oh, hey, well, he was at an island, he was heavily drunk. And I'm like, but was he though? Or is this a narrative that you guys want to use? And she even apparently said that one of Nolan's football coaches told her that he saw Nolan that day between 2:45 p.m., 3:30 p.m. local time. Quote, he was like, Christine, yeah, we talked for a while. We talked about college. We talked about his life, his plans. And he was like, he was perfectly fine. Because I think it had bothered him too that there was this narrative of, oh, he was sloppy drunk. So what do you, big question, overall picture I have here, Rich, I just wanted to lay some of this out. As they're talking about this, as they're commenting on this, is there anything that gives you concern for the family or Ben Crump about what they're saying?
I haven't watched a lot of what Ben Crump has said. I know about it, and I know that he's drawn some criticism for some of his comments. So let me start with this premise. From the point of view of the investigation, it would be preferable to me if the family wasn't making a lot of public comments, because I think talking about evidence publicly can potentially interfere with an investigation. Investigators don't tell you everything they found every day during an investigation. They do it step by step. They do it methodically. They talk to witnesses. They look at forensics. They look at evidence. And ultimately, when
a separate witness reported he was nowhere to be seen by 7:30 p.m., there is a gap of nearly 3 hours where the official narrative relies entirely on the word of a group of friends whose accounts have already proven inconsistent on key details. Now, let's talk about Katie. The friends told Nolan's mother that he stayed with a girl named Katie. At first, they claimed they didn't know her, had never seen her before. Then it emerged they had been texting with her. Her sister gave a different account, telling the Daily Mail that Katie believed Nolan was getting ready to board the boat with his friends, and that the friends wouldn't have left without him. The United Cajun Navy compiled a 22-page working report. They are not investigators, but their document lists the evidence they suggest law enforcement should request: phone records, GPS data, witness interviews conducted separately. They are asking the questions that should have been asked on day one. And the suggestion to request specific evidence implies that the investigation is not pursuing those avenues aggressively enough on its own. There is an audio recording of the Triton contacting a towing service. The call was canceled. A Good Samaritan towed the boat in. That Good Samaritan is now receiving threats online. That is the environment this case has created. An environment of intimidation, of witnesses being harassed, of public figures receiving death threats. A California man was arrested for making threats against a judge who is the stepmother of one of Nolan's friends. That is not just a distraction.
To get into with this, I mean, we can start with the idea of a fund being set up with all that money coming in. We can start about what the goal is, what the line is. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts because you covered a lot of ground. You covered a lot of ground there, my friend. But let me start with the fund, okay? Because, again, this is something we're seeing now. You know, Luigi Mangione has raised $1.5 million in his legal defense fund, right?
Very different. Very different.
I understand, but I'm saying a lot of people, either defendants or victims or others, set up these funds. And one thing I want to encourage people is when they look at a fund like that, to try to scrutinize it and make sure you know where your money's going before you give it, because there's not a lot of control. Once you give $100 to some give, send, go, you don't have any control over what that money is really used for. So you want to really take a look at that fund and make sure that it's being used for things you want it to be used for. I find the idea that
is a systemic failure of justice. Every investigation starts somewhere, but this one started with a refusal to look anywhere that mattered. The family is not satisfied. The public is not satisfied. The grand jury is now the mechanism through which the truth must be forced. The central question remains what happened between 4:30 p.m., when the Triton left, and 7:30 p.m., when Nolan Wells was last seen. And why are the people who claim to have been there so unable to provide a consistent answer? We are going to leave you with a specific document. The United Cajun Navy report is publicly available. They released it through their official channels on August 4th. Read it. Compare the timeline they compiled to the statements made by the Jackson County Sheriff's Office.
On that line between are they opinion or factual?
Yeah, that's why we have trials for it. And just to put it into perspective, we've talked about this before, but there was an apparent friend of Nolan Wells, Bart Edmondson Jr., planning on taking legal action because some have speculated online or accused him of being somehow involved or connected to what happened to Nolan. He retained an attorney, Russell Latino, who released a statement to Law and Crime saying we've talked about this before, but after a week of egregiously false and defamatory accusations against Bart Edmondson Jr., accusations which resulted in credible death threats now being investigated by the FBI, the Edmondson family has released a statement addressing their son's knowledge of and cooperation in the Nolan Wells investigation. And he actually sent us a copy of a cease and desist letter that he apparently sent to an online influencer for allegedly spreading misinformation. So, one of the things I also think as we wrap things up, we don't know if there's a crime here. We don't know if there's going to be criminal charges. But what's interesting is if this were to advance to somehow the authorities believing that someone was involved in Nolan's death or that someone allegedly committed a crime in connection with the investigation, what you and I both know when any witness is on the stand and being questioned, if they have any civil action, if they have any lawsuit, that is prime ground for questioning, isn't it? And that complicates matters of credibility and really getting to the truth of what happened.
Yeah, so in a lot of cases, you really want to wait, if you can, until after the criminal proceedings are over, if there are any, to bring civil litigation. So if you're going to be a witness and you can wait, you have to worry about statute of limitations, which can be kind of quick on things like wrongful death actions. But you may want to hold your powder on your civil case until you've done all your testifying in a criminal case, precisely to avoid the kind of thing you're talking about. And also because you can't really proceed with civil litigation until the criminal component is done. If you're suing people who face criminal charges, they won't appear for a deposition or make any progress in the civil case until the criminal case is over.
And that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also check us out on NBC's Peacock as well. If you want to follow me, X, Instagram, my News Nation show, Jesse Weber Live, Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. Eastern. See you next time, everybody.